He stood at the absolute peak of power. 34 years old, executive vice president of Def Jam Recordings, respected by legends, trusted by artists, and feared by rivals. Shakir Stewart had everything: the title, the vision, the legacy in motion. Then on November 1st, 2008, he was gone. The official story? Suicide. But the people who knew him best, they never believed it. Not for a second. If you love uncovering hidden legends like this, don't forget to like and subscribe to Legends Underrated, and tell me in the comments, where in the world are you watching from? This is the story of a man who changed hip-hop forever, and the mystery that still haunts the industry 17 years later. Shakir Stewart was born on April 12, 1974, in Oakland, California. Not the polished, gentrified Oakland you might see today, but the raw, electric Oakland of the 80s and early 90s. A city carved from resistance, rhythm, and soul. It was a place that shaped artists, activists, and dreamers. Young Shakir grew up in neighborhoods that weren't easy, but they were alive with culture. Hip-hop was rising. The streets had stories. And Shakir, he was soaking it all in. From the beginning, he was different. Not the loudest kid in the room, but the one everyone listened to. Teachers noticed his confidence. Friends saw his hustle. He wasn't trying to be a rapper or a producer. He was a connector, someone who could spot greatness in others before they saw it in themselves. His parents raised him to believe in education and self-belief, a combination that would define his entire journey. Even as a teenager, he understood the psychology of sound. He studied how songs made people feel. Marvin Gaye, Earth, Wind and Fire, Run D.M.C. Those weren't just songs to him. They were blueprints. That drive, that Oakland spirit, would carry him all the way to the top. After high school, Shakir made a bold move. He packed his bags and headed across the country to Atlanta, enrolling at Morehouse College. Morehouse wasn't just any school. It was a place that had shaped some of Black America's greatest minds. For Shakir, it was the perfect environment. He studied marketing, but his real education happened outside the classroom. Atlanta, in the mid-90s, was exploding. LaFace Records was turning the city into the new Motown of the South. TLC, Tony Braxton, and Outkast were breaking barriers. Shakir wanted to be right in the middle of it all. While his classmates focused on exams and graduation parties, Shakir was connecting with DJs, producers, and promoters. He threw small parties and organized talent showcases, the kind of nights where unknown artists could perform in front of industry insiders. That was his zone. He didn't need the spotlight. His talent was identifying potential. As one friend later said, Shake had that ear, man. He could tell who was next before anyone else even heard the record. It wasn't luck. It was instinct honed by years of listening and understanding culture. During college, he met Tony Draper, founder of Suave House Records. Draper saw something special in the young student: a sharp mind, natural leadership, and an unshakable belief in Southern music. Shakir began helping Draper scout new talent, and that became his first real taste of the business. He was young, confident, and learning fast. By the time he graduated from Morehouse, he wasn't just another kid with a degree. He was already plugged into Atlanta's underground music scene, a network that would soon become his launchpad. By the late 90s, Shakir Stewart had become one of Atlanta's most connected young executives. After graduation, he joined Hitco Music Publishing under L.A. Reid. That relationship changed everything. Reid saw in Shakir the same hunger he once had, a mix of business acumen and street intuition. Reid gave him room to move, and Shakir ran with it. His biggest career jump came when he was brought into Def Jam Recordings, the legendary label that has shaped generations of hip-hop. For Shakir, this was the big leagues, the place where Jay-Z, LL Cool J, and DMX had built their legacies. But instead of being intimidated, he came in ready to make history. He quickly became known as the guy who could spot stars before anyone else. When young Jeezy was bubbling in Atlanta, Shakir saw potential others missed. He fought for him, helped shape his deal, and introduced him to the world. Jeezy's debut album became proof that Shakir's ear was pure gold. He also played a key role in signing Rick Ross, another artist who would go on to become a major name in hip-hop. That move alone earned Shakir massive respect inside Def Jam and across the industry. He wasn't just signing artists, he was building careers, shaping the entire sound of mid-2000s hip-hop. People who worked with him said he carried himself with grace and focus. He could walk into a chaotic studio session and instantly bring calm. He could sit in an executive boardroom full of egos and somehow make everyone feel heard. That balance between street credibility and corporate discipline was rare. It was what made him irreplaceable. But something else was happening behind the scenes, something few people talked about openly. Stories like these are why I built Legends Underrated, so make sure to subscribe for more untold tales. By 2006, Shakir Stewart was operating at a level most executives never reach. His relationship with L.A. Reid had grown stronger, and when Jay-Z became president of Def Jam, the two hit it off instantly. Both men were sharp, business-minded, and deeply connected to the streets. Jay saw Shakir as someone who understood both the creative and corporate sides of the game. Def Jam was going through a transformation, and Shakir became a bridge between the old school and the new wave. He helped bring in a younger roster of talent that kept Def Jam relevant while staying true to its roots. His colleagues described him as the heartbeat of the building. Artists loved him because he genuinely cared. He'd check in on them, talk about their mental health, their goals, their families. He wasn't just trying to make hits, he was trying to make legends. One artist recalled, "Shake didn't talk numbers first. He talked about your purpose. That's rare in this business." But success also brought pressure. The higher he climbed, the more he had to navigate politics, jealousy, and competition. Corporate music is a battlefield, and not everyone wanted to see a young, confident black executive rise so fast. By 2008, Shakir was appointed executive vice president of Def Jam Recordings, one of the most prestigious titles in the industry. It was a major milestone, proof that talent, integrity, and hard work could still win. When the news broke, the industry celebrated. Colleagues praised his vision. Artists flooded him with congratulations. Magazines called him the next big executive voice of the new generation. It was a victory not only for Shakir but for every kid who came from humble beginnings and dreamed of changing the game. His leadership style was different. He wasn't the kind of executive who ruled by fear or numbers. He ruled by connection. He'd walk into a meeting, dap everyone up, crack a joke, and instantly shift the energy. He made people feel seen, from the biggest artist to the quietest intern. Under his leadership, Def Jam started to feel alive again. But behind the smiles, some noticed a subtle shift. Friends said he seemed a little more tense, a little quieter. Maybe it was the pressure. Maybe it was exhaustion. Or maybe it was something darker happening behind the scenes. By the fall of 2008, the man once known for his infectious optimism was showing quiet signs of distress. Friends later recalled that Shakir had seemed different in those final months. Not sad exactly, but tense, distant, distracted. One close friend said he started talking about something big, then stopped himself, like he didn't want to say too much. Others noticed he was checking over his shoulder more often, watching his surroundings, almost as if he felt he was being followed. In the months before his death, there were whispers that Shakir was dealing with extreme pressure, both professional and personal. He was juggling massive responsibilities at Def Jam, dealing with corporate restructuring, and facing rumors about his private life. But many of his friends don't buy the narrative of stress and depression. They remember a man still planning for the future. He had just been talking about expanding into film and launching a new music venture. He told one friend, "I'm not done yet. I'm just getting started." According to several reports, Shakir had been reaching out to friends in the weeks leading up to his death, offering encouragement, checking in, almost as if he wanted to make sure everyone was good. One artist later said, "He called me out of nowhere just to tell me to keep going." That was Shake, always giving energy even when he didn't have much left. Then there were the darker rumors, the ones that would surface online years later, allegations that he was being blackmailed. Some said it involved personal footage. Others claimed it was business related. None of it was ever proven, but those stories grew louder after his death. On the personal side, Shakir was engaged and had 2 young children. He loved his family deeply, and that's one of the reasons his friends have always questioned the suicide explanation. He wasn't a man trying to escape life. He was a man trying to protect it. One thing everyone agrees on, he was not acting like someone preparing to die. He was making future plans, booking meetings, talking about Christmas with his kids. Then, suddenly, silence. November 1st, 2008. The news broke quietly at first, then spread like wildfire through the music world. Shakir Stewart was dead. The report said he had taken his own life at his home in Atlanta. He was just 34 years old. For those who loved him, the headline felt impossible. For those who worked with him, it made no sense at all. The man they'd spoken to days earlier was upbeat, planning, laughing, talking about the future. Within hours, disbelief turned into grief, and grief quickly turned into suspicion. Calls flew between artists, executives, and friends. "Did you hear? That can't be right. There's no way Shake did that to himself." The entire industry froze. His fiancée, Michelle Rivers, and his family were devastated. They released a brief statement asking for privacy and called Shakir a man of integrity, a devoted father, and a friend to many. But it didn't answer the question that was haunting everyone: why? Close friends said they had spoken to him the day before. He had been talking about future projects and how proud he was of what he'd achieved. One producer recalled, "He was fine, man. Like, really fine. We were laughing." He said he was looking forward to spending time with his kids. None of this fits. Police ruled the death a suicide by gunshot, and that was the official story. But the public wasn't convinced. Online forums began filling with theories. People pointed out inconsistencies, the lack of a suicide note, the timing, the behavior leading up to it. Some said he had seemed scared in the days before, not sad. Others mentioned the mysterious text message he reportedly received that night, something no one outside law enforcement ever saw. Even those inside the industry whispered that something didn't add up. "It's always the same pattern," one executive said. "A black man rises too high, too fast, and then suddenly he's gone." While nothing was ever proven, the sheer amount of speculation showed how deeply people distrusted the official version of events. Years later, artists and colleagues still bring up his name with a mix of admiration and pain. Many insist that Shakir was not the type to give up. One of his friends said, "Shake had that survivor energy. Even when things got rough, he'd say, 'Man, we'll figure it out.' That's who he was." Tributes poured in from across the country. Young Jeezy, Rick Ross, and others publicly mourned him. L.A. Reid called him one of the most talented and driven executives he'd ever worked with. But as time passed, something eerie lingered, the sense that the truth was never fully told. Every few years, as scandals and lawsuits surfaced involving figures tied to that same circle, Shakir's name would come up again. To this day, fans still post messages on social media: "Justice for Shakir Stewart. He didn't do it. Reopen the case." Even after his passing, Shakir Stewart's influence continued to ripple through the music industry. He might not have been a performer, but his fingerprints were all over the sound of a generation. Every time a Jeezy anthem shook the speakers or a Rick Ross verse echoed through the radio, a piece of Shakir's legacy lived on. He was the quiet architect behind the scenes. Colleagues described him as a bridge builder. He didn't just sign talent, he built communities. He pushed Southern hip-hop into the mainstream at a time when it was still being dismissed. That move reshaped the industry forever. Artists who knew him often credit him for their confidence and creative freedom. Young Jeezy once said that Shakir believed in him when others thought he was too raw. Rick Ross mentioned that Shakir was one of the first execs who treated him like an equal. That kind of respect was rare, and it built loyalty that money couldn't buy. Within Def Jam, his mentorship left a deep imprint. Several younger executives went on to prominent positions in the industry, carrying his lessons forward, lessons about integrity, empathy, and staying grounded. Even outside of music, Shakir's story inspired countless people. In Oakland and Atlanta, schools and organizations have mentioned his name in programs teaching business, entrepreneurship, and leadership. His life showed that success didn't have to come from privilege or connections. It could come from vision and relentless drive. The pain of his death still lingers, but so does his example. His story became a rallying cry for many who felt overlooked or underestimated in their own careers. He was young, gifted, and respected, a man who climbed from the streets of Oakland to the top floor of Def Jam's headquarters. But like so many stories in the music industry, Shakir Stewart's journey ended far too soon. When people look back on his life now, they don't just see an executive, they see a symbol. Shakir represented everything that was right about the business: passion, loyalty, and vision. But his story also exposed everything that's wrong with it. The pressure, the politics, and the silence that follows tragedy. Every so often, his name trends online again. Sometimes it's after a new documentary drops. Sometimes after another scandal hits the headlines. And each time the same comments appear: justice for Shakir, he didn't do it. We still remember. Those aren't just internet theories. They're echoes of a collective grief that never found closure. Maybe we'll never know the full story of what happened behind those closed doors in 2008. Maybe the truth is buried deep under years of secrets and silence. But what we do know is this: Shakir Stewart mattered. So tonight, as we remember Shakir Stewart, let's not focus on how he died, but how he lived. Let's remember the music he helped bring to life, the people he inspired, and the doors he kicked open for others, because maybe that's the real legacy. Not fame, not fortune, but the impact you leave behind when you're gone. This twist shocked the world. And if you never want to miss stories like this, subscribe to Legends Underrated today. Do you believe Shakir really took his own life? Or was there something more, something darker, something that the world still refuses to face? Drop a comment below and tell me what you think. Rest in power, Shakir Stewart. Your light may have faded too soon, but your legacy still shines.